Hi Nashville Arts readers, I'm Jennie Fields and I'm going to read to you from my forthcoming book. It's called The Age of Ecstasy. It'll come out from Viking. And this little section that I'm going to read you is from a scene that happens really towards the beginning of the book, where Edith Wharton, who has spent a very quiet life with her husband, unhappily married, has met this journalist who lives in Paris. She's just spent the winter in Paris and she's been very attracted to him, and now he's come to visit her at her house in the Berkshires. She is now driving him after 2 days at her house to the train station to put him on the train. And while they are driving, it has snowed the night before, and while most of the drive the snow has melted, now up in the mountains it's icy. They've had to pull off, and the chauffeur cook has said he needs to put chains on the tires. So she and Morton Fullerton, which is the man, decide to go and have a cigarette together in the woods. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Wharton, we'll have to turn off," Cook announces. "It's slippery up here still. We need to put chains on the tires." He turns onto a packed earth dog leg, meant as an overlook. As he heads back to the boot to find the chains and Elliot joins him, Edith gets out of the car and stretches in the chilly mountain air. Fullerton stands beside her and presents an open silver cigarette case. "Care to?" he asks. She takes a cigarette and waits for him to find a match. "What do you say," she asks, after he's lit her cigarette. "Shall we go down and sit on that bank? There's no snow right there." He nods and she lifts the heavy plaid rug from the motor car. The view from the bank is breathtaking. Indigo mountains braid the horizon. Fallen and falling red and yellow leaves embroider the landscape. Snow sits in every crevice but the one they've intended as their perch. But before she sits down, she spots it. "Look, what a sight," she says, pointing as Fullerton lays the blanket on the ground. A beautiful little witch hazel shrub is shouting with fresh red blooms against the blue-white snow. Instead of the customary yellow flowers, tiny crimson rags undulate on their twigs like banners of happiness. She crosses the sugary white to snap off a sprig. Bringing it back to Fullerton, he takes a stem between his fingers. "The proverbial late bloomer, Mrs. Wharton," he says. He glances at her and smiles. Does he have any idea how empty her marriage is? Does he sense that she is beginning to wonder whether he is the one to fill that emptiness with belated beauty, so that her life might finally flower like the beguiling and brazen witch hazel? "I imagine the color of that witch hazel is not so different from the color of your hair as a child," he says tenderly. "Am I right?" "Yes," she says, "it was red. It gave me no end of grief. Well, now it gives me no end of pleasure. It's the color of maple syrup," he says. "I wish I could take it down and see it in the sun. Does it ripple?" Edith feels herself blush. "Yes, it's wavy when I take it down." She's 45 years old, but in Morton Fullerton's presence she feels as tender and untried as an 18-year-old, deliciously uncertain. She has spent her adult life working to be impressive, imposing, so that people might take her seriously. How has he torn it all down with a few impertinent words?